Welcome back to Getting Past the Premium, everybody. Excited to have a guest on today to talk everything robotic process automation. How are we doing today, Bharath?
Great. Thank you, Elliot. Pleasure being on the show. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I don't know how many people out in the world actually know what RPA is, robotic process automation. So I'm excited to kind of bring up that topic and what agency owners, principals, producers, could be thinking about from this perspective, and how, working through the process of identifying these areas in which RPA could be a good fit can help them ultimately bring more value to their clients, so on and so forth. So with that, though, I want to go back in time a bit. Why don't you give everybody your background, kind of how you got to where you're at today, how Blue Ocean came to be, and then what you guys are doing for clients today.
Perfect. No, again, thank you. It's such a pleasure to talk about this topic for me. It's near and dear. My background, I used to be a CFO. So bulk of my career is two big companies. One was Ritz-Carlton Hotels. That's where my sort of early career was started for about 10 plus years. And then another 10 years with another group called Peninsula Hotels out of Hong Kong, an ultra luxury hotel company. And so to me, I looked at finance and I looked at the operations, right? In the sense, because finance usually is a cost. There's no money coming out of it, right? We are counting the money. People joke, you're bean counters. And a true CFO, I always believe, was actually my old mentor talked to me was, we have to help actually move the business to be better. That's our value, our proposition, not putting just the financials out. And so when I looked at so the way we broke it out is, if you're spending time to put the financials out, then you're not spending time to help the business. So early on, almost 18 years ago in the industry, we went to a one-day close. And so ever since that, it's always been a one-day close. By the end of the first business day, our financials would be out. And by the next morning, we do any final changes and we were done.
Wow.
And then what that helped actually a couple of things. One is we were current on staying on the business in the sense of focusing on what's happening today, not what happened last month, right? That was always there. So you are like, what are we doing now? And the second is I was able to get a better team in place because the ones who stayed back, who were there, who were really good at what they did, enjoyed their work because they were not stuck doing mundane stuff.
Yeah.
If you're doing, if you're taking 5-10 days to close the books, all that 5 to 10 days work went away. Poof, you don't have it anymore. We condensed it, of course, managed it a little differently. But then on day 2, you were looking at the future now, understanding and adding value.
Got all that
so
time
that's how,
back. Yeah.
Exactly. And then so you had a leaner team on top of that. So one, you focused on the current. You were focusing on today or tomorrow or going forward, and you had a much more leaner team, which was much better equipped. So that's my background, and the way I got into automation is I saw the change happening in the larger companies where over the last 10 plus years, the Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 companies have been investing in automation because they're hiring, 10, 15, 20 to 100 people on a monthly basis. Yeah. And as with the demographic change that's happening, we have this historic unemployment in the country.
Yep.
After COVID, right? Even leading into COVID. And the fundamental reason is, there's just not enough people coming into the workforce, replacing the baby boomers who are retiring. And that's going to get even worse. And to your point about why RPA is between now and 2030, the oldest baby boomer would be 65. So they can technically leave the workforce and get on Social Security. That's the largest generation. And so the next Generation X coming on, the millennials coming in, it's a large population, but they're not replacing from a profession perspective, like for like. So that's why we have this dearth of positions, people for positions, because there's no replacement one-to-one.
Well, we certainly experienced that in the insurance industry. It's
correct, right? Worse. Yeah, I know. I mean, I live in Pittsburgh, right? So I saw the other day, Walmart is doing, $17 to say welcome to Walmart.
Yeah.
And I remember in an accounting place, just south of Pittsburgh, we were paying $16 for them to speak. Become an accountant.
Yeah.
and where they had to really put their mind to it, or, attention to detail and, manual work that have process work. And now you can just go to Walmart, stand in line, and say, "Hey, welcome to Walmart." And, you say, "I'll have back way and standing up," but at least you don't have to think.
Yeah.
So there's, that competition is huge. And that's how I got into it, because kids coming out of college were saying, "Oh my God, I went to college and you want me to do this mind-numbing work." And I said, "Pal, 25 years ago I did it.
Yeah.
Get to it."
Yeah.
But of
you
course,
got to earn your stripes, right?
Exactly. But, I realized I can't get my kids to pick up laundry at home. So my teenagers, I'm like, this is not going to work. This is not going to play out well. And I saw, so being with the larger companies, I saw automation coming into the workforce. And I realized how I can help democratize this and get it to the small and medium companies. Because, the foundation of this country was built on small businesses, not on the too big to fail large companies who have the investment funds to do this.
Yep.
So that was my goal, is to say, how can I normalize the playing field, bring it to the right price point, help small companies stand out against their own. That's how I got into this in the end.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think it's a very valid problem that we have. And I think, the way you're approaching it, I've always appreciated, and I think it makes a ton of sense. But let's again start with, what is robotic process automation? And then, how you were talking about the mundane tasks and things like that. What is it being implemented for and making the biggest impact on, whether it be an insurance agency or other businesses?
Perfect. Yes. So because of the larger media, people know about automation when they see, Amazon warehouse, those little bots, or those different companies that have the arm, sticking out, doing those repetitive work, right? Those physical robots, they've seen that in the sort of the larger media that they've come across. What happened in the last about 5 to 7 years, process automation started coming into the workforce, digital automation, so to speak, or just software automation. And what it is, in essence, it can actually, if people are familiar with Excel and their macros, right? Those macros where, we could, if you're an Excel expert, you could build those macros for something that's repetitive, and then you could go in and press the button and it would redo the same thing over and over again. And many softwares have these macro functions, right? You can say, "I'm going to do this repetitively, record what you do once, and then it can repeat it." So this kind of automation now is that Excel macros on steroids now. So where the tool stack now, from roughly around 2020, it all came together, actually, 2019, 2020, for prime time, so to speak, where pretty much anything a person does with a keyboard or a mouse that's highly repetitive, such as, invoice processing, or bank reconciliation, or moving data or information from system A to system B, right? All that now can be automated, where the software is set up to repeat the tasks that a person does. The nice thing about this versus the Excel macro is now we have AI and artificial intelligence built into this models, where there's a lot more if this then that option. And it can actually flag inconsistencies or variances or things that are not the same anymore, and send an email and wait for a response, and then execute further than that. So it's not it's much more interactive in the process, and it's just software really now that does that. And the version I use is, it's a language called Python, which came out of Monty Python, the sitcom. That's how the name came.
Really?
Yeah, that's how the name. Not this. A lot of people think it's a snake, but it's actually from the sitcom Monty Python.
I didn't know that.
And it's ubiquitous, like Java almost.
Yeah.
And it's open source. And so that's what makes it easier to get in for small companies to be able to afford it and get into this space.
Yeah.
Hope that gives you an idea of sort of the things it can do.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and the crazy thing to me, I mean, the possibilities are endless, but it has gone so much further than Excel, where you can actually have the software, let's call it, but the automation set up to, take information from this piece, but log into, no different than I would log into a certain, say, carrier portal, and then take that information, enter it into these fields, and, click through that carrier portal. Like, I know that you've built personal lines raters and things like that in the past, or, software that will do personal lines rating and things. And so it's really takes kind of that, you almost have to use a creative side of your brain to not only say what are those mundane things that we could replicate, but then also, what could we do if this were available? And I think it's important then too to say, what do we do with the humans, right? Because we're not, at least my opinion is, we're not necessarily looking to replace people's jobs with some of this automation.
Absolutely not.
We're hopefully looking to reapply that person's skill set to more activities that are going to drive value to the client, that at this point really only a human can do, right? That relationship building, that, talking to the client about their situation and helping figure out, where do we need to go with this? How do we handle that? Repurposing that time to higher value activities rather than point click, repetitive type processes that, are very prevalent in our industry. We do the same things over and over and over. And I think that there's a ton of opportunity to do that. Now, take not only that's the opportunity cost that we're missing out on now, but then, as you mentioned earlier, the labor force issues that we're going to continue to have. I think we absolutely need to be, looking at ways we can automate more of that mundane, or if everybody's familiar with Ryan Deeds, he calls it the soul sucking tasks. So, so those are all things though that, people at the end of the day don't get enjoyment out of anyways. They're not coming to work, passionate about processing, insurance quotes or whatever. And so, as much as we can make that process simple, easy, and automated, it's going to give them the time to spend more time with the client. Right?
Exactly. Correct. Exactly. No, you hit the nail on the head, actually, on both fronts. What are people going to do if these things are done? So, to your point, one thing I want to you made a point on this. I want to sort of add to that is this whole automation. It's never going to replace people. At this phase where we are, the best the automation can do is about 95% of the work. The best. The sweet spot is between 80 and 90%, right? That's where the sweet spot is. And I would actually, as a proponent, as an executioner on this, I tell people not to go above that mark as well, because we want humans in the loop, making sure everything is running well as well. Because in essence, I use the analogy of Batman and Robin, where now the most junior person becomes Batman in the organization, or Batwoman, right? And they have Robin the bot doing the grunt work for them.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, now you start attracting and hiring the best in the industry, because there is a shortage of labor pool, right? And there's always a strata of good, better, best of people, right? You always have the level of some people are better than others. So you, by adopting this, can get the most qualified person because they are doing the least grunt work.
Yep.
And they're managing exceptions. They're being a Batman or Batwoman in their organization, rather than become the Robin in the organization, because they have Robin the bot getting the work done for them. So that transition is never going to be, I don't need you anymore as a human, I have a machine doing this for me, right? That's never going to happen, in my view. And to your point, the second point is, how many of us in our own personal lives complain about customer service, right? You call up any organization, you get the phone tree, you get the voicemail, you get that automated thing. It's like, how? Just, Lord have mercy, just give me a person I can just talk to.
I just want to talk to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
And this gives you that opportunity to shift. And the analogy I would use also, automation is heralded as the fourth industrial revolution. As with any industrial revolution that we've had in the past, there were winners and losers. And so like Henry Ford said, right? If I ask people what they want, I want a faster horse and not a car. Today, so the horse buggy industry went out of business, so to speak, except for the hobby or the pleasure stuff. And that's why Ford is, became that huge company it is, and they're winners in that aspect. And I believe in this as well, the adoption, people who adopt this technology and then can get out of that vicious cycle of hiring people, trying to find the right person for the job, filling positions, right? They can get out of that vicious cycle on a regular basis, so they can then have this paradigm change with the problem solution paradigm change that sort of Einstein said, right? If you do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity.
Yep.
You can get out of that to work smarter and not harder.
100% agree. And so, okay, if so all of that being said, I'm an insurance agency owner, right? And I'm trying to think, okay, how can I start to implement some of this automation? I don't even know where to start, Bharath. What would you tell that agency owner? Kind of how would you coach them on identifying, the highest ROI type of areas that they should be considering in their agency? How can they then repurpose, people to different tasks or things like that? How do you work through that with one of your clients to help identify these areas that they, should be looking at, should be considering?
Perfect. Yeah, the first thing I always tell is education. Get to understand and sort of kick the tires first, because it's so new, and especially in this space, right? For example, in a Fortune 500 company that I spoke to recently, they have a position called Director of Automation in their workforce now.
Wow.
So that's coming. That position title didn't exist a few years ago. It's there now. It's only a matter. It's like from the .com days, right? The web developer or the website SEO manager, right? Those positions didn't exist 25 years ago.
Yep.
Now every company has an SEO or a web, whatever title they put in, but it's something to do with the website development. Same way that Director of Automation now is coming, into the workforce. So the first thing is understanding, getting out and understanding what the art of the possible is, like get familiar. Second is start looking at sort of their sort of workforce and their tasks in the organization and saying, okay, what are repetitive work that I'm having trouble filling positions in? Where are my turnover positions, right? Which are, what am I, hearing? Like I said, you can't tell people, hey, pal, I do, when 25 years ago, I did it, now it's your turn to zip it into it. What happened? Because the kids these days, they grow up on an iPad generation, not on the Etch-a-Sketch, that they had to physically do. They don't have the patience. They don't know what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
How many memes have we seen on YouTube or somewhere where you have these kids, trying to use a rotary dial?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, even
that's so good though.
Yeah, that's so funny. We laugh at it, but they don't know. I mean, it is, we are the cause of that, right? We gave them the iPhone. You just press a button. They don't know what this thing is. So same way, you're not going to get a team into your organization doing this mundane stuff. So look at repetitive work, look at your tasks that are taking too much time, and look at, in the sense, look and see from the outside point of view, from a customer perspective, right? Are you spending a bulk of your time trying to understand what your customers' needs are, right? Are you building that relationship? Do you have the time to do that? Or is a portion of your time spent on the back office just getting that information about that client up to date in your systems? There's where I would start looking to understand. And then with automation, it's definitely not an on-off switch. It's an evolution. It's a journey that you have to go to over time. I use the analogy of the X, where you have these heavy manual processes at the moment. You've got to bring that down slowly, process at a time, and then increase automation process one at a time, where you get to a nice, inflection at a point after a few processes, and then it's gravy after that, right?
Yeah.
So definitely get in slow. Don't try to, eat the elephant in one bite, as my math professor say, right? One bundle, eat the elephant one bite at a time. This is a journey of eating an elephant journey, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because it's fundamentally, it's like use Batman and Robin as an analogy, right? So the term with automation people are using is also rightfully so. It's called digital workers. So it's actually replacing 90, not all, right? 90%, up to 90% of the tasks a person does. And many organizations are in a situation they have to, hire people, replace people, turnover, right? So when those things happen, you don't have to do all that stuff. You bring the automation in, start, if you're especially have an aging workforce, start bringing automation in, because then it actually does the SOPs for you as well, right? Because once you've automated it, you don't have to say, hey, every time some person's leaving, hey, please write what you do today so the next person can train on that.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that because it runs like a machine. So it's that's nice, slow transition would be the one. And just get into this, get your feet wet. The sooner you get your feet wet, the better it is.
Yeah, you got to start to learn it. Well, and so I'm curious, then, you and I have talked about this, where it seems like there's this kind of wave in the industry around virtual assistants or, outsourcing some of this labor, which is essentially saying, this is a blanket statement that I know isn't fully accurate, but essentially if we aren't improving the process, we're basically just saying we're going to go find cheaper labor to do the process. Right. And, there are some things that may be necessary for, or, the labor shortage here, we have to find people somewhere. Right. I think that those are all great opportunities. And I do think firms should evaluate virtual workforce and things like that. But I want everybody to be cognizant that I don't think that's always the answer. And just, by saying, let's go find a cheaper workforce or whatnot isn't certainly the answer, in my opinion. We need to solve the underlying processes and problems. Right. So, not for everything, but I think a lot of those types of processes that we are outsourcing to folks in other areas could be handled via automation, and that you and I've had this conversation several times where a lot of it just becomes, we have to take the time to identify those, to go through the process of saying, is this something that an automated bot could do 80-90% of the time? And I think that there's more out there than not. And, one of the larger projects you and I have talked about, which I think just this can give some sense of what's possible, is, around policy documents and policy checking, right? So we have, part of our team's duties are saying we get this renewal policy. How does it compare to expiring policy and any changes that we made throughout the year, so we can make the client aware if there's any, major changes they need to be aware of about their policies.
Correct.
That takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to do. And so, we have talked about a bot can read those, right, and say and point out those differences to a degree after, you've done some training and things of those. But that's a great example of, something that may seem like a human has to do it, because how can you look at these two things and see the differences? But in reality, you can set up automation to do stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're just scratching the surface of what automation can do, actually, and especially when you layer in AI, and especially what chatbots are coming in, and especially with ChatGPT and Bard, coming up as well. Because from a language perspective, there's a phenomenal amount of work that can get summarized. And I always, I'll throw this into you, continue to add this in, is that at the end of the day, decision still has to be made by a person.
Yeah.
So it's that Batman and Robin. So at the moment, you have in organizations, you have a junior person, most, entry-level position, and then you have a supervisor who's actually summarizing and reviewing what a person does. Here is an opportunity with the labor workforce to actually more flatten the organization, have fewer people, more qualified, right, or better talented, who can now actually add value into this. From a customer service, now I'll give you a perfect example. I'm trying to deal with Home Depot delivering something, returning something back and forth. And every time where I hit a roadblock, they say, I need to talk to my manager. And I was thinking to myself, listen, we're not trying to, this is not SpaceX, right? We're not trying to get to Mars. I don't need you to figure out a trajectory, how to break Earth's atmosphere, how to get to Mars. This is just pick up and drop off.
True. Yeah.
Why do you need a manager for that? right? Just we're not
Yeah.
we're not making any equations. We're not creating anything. We're not solving any major linear equations on this thing. And I believe that workforce, we can get to this where we can empower people into the organization
Yeah.
to be the best it can be. So this way, there's no more back at this customer service can change. And I think, that's, I believe, to your earlier point of where can people be eradicated. I believe customer service, for many organizations, is not good. It's not where it needs to be. And I can say this coming from Ritz-Carlton, right? It's about, and I was talking to David Carter this the other day. Sorry, I messed up his name. And he talks about it's the service he gets at Ritz-Carlton. And one example he gave was he drinks, I think it was Coke or Diet Coke, I forget. And he had an empty can, and the next day he comes in, there was 6-pack on his desk. It's $3, right? I mean, the cost of that was $3, but
Yeah.
he is a lifelong fan now because they saw how he lives in the room, so to speak, and made a small gesture, say, we see you, or we understand you. And that's what I grew up on. I grew up on the Ritz-Carlton culture saying, it's about, because Motel 6 offers the same thing Ritz-Carlton does, right? For a significantly lower price.
Yep.
But people will pay the Ritz-Carlton price, so to speak, or in Peninsula price because of that differentiator. We understood, did they sleep on the right side of the bed or the left side of the bed, right? All those little nuances were actually looked upon and actually customized to that person amongst a series of other things. So coming out of that and seeing the customer service on the other side is like, it's two different worlds we're living in. And now this is possible to give that Ritz-Carlton service at the same, without having that exorbitant cost, because at that time it was just you throw people at the problem. Now you can throw automation at the problem, get rid of the mundane. You can elevate people to be the Batman in the organization, to be that customer person and be the best agency you are in your region.
Yeah.
That is an opportunity. It's yours to lose, so to speak.
Totally. Well, and I think using that example, which is fantastic, but by taking out the mundane and allowing that time and that space to then focus on the client experience, you are able then to think about things that Ritz-Carlton has spent years figuring out, right? But if we're stuck in the day-to-day doing all of the mundane tasks to process insurance policies, which do have to be done, it's hard to take yourself out of that and spend the right amount of time thinking about the experience that your client is actually going through. And I think, our client expectations are certainly changing as well. We've heard so much about efficiency and, people want just to be able to buy an insurance policy as quick as possible and, move on with life. They don't like dealing with us, blah, blah, blah. I tend to take a different approach on that, or a different attack, where I do agree the actual insurance transaction should be very seamless, very easy, hopefully is very efficient. But I don't believe that the majority of people, certainly there's a segment of the population that do, but I don't think that a lot of people, probably our people listening's target clients, want an efficient, purchase online type of model.
Absolutely.
There again are certainly a target segment of the population that do, but people don't understand typically what's in their insurance policy. They might want to do a lot of the research, and they might want to do, understand how much could this cost me and blah, 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 blah online. But the majority of the time they want to talk to somebody. And that's where I think we as an industry need to go and get to, is be that advisor, be not the product salesperson, which again, that's part of the advising. Part of the being an advisor could be placing an insurance policy, but be that educator, be an advisor to your client to say, hey, here's your options. Here's, based on your situation, what's going to make the most sense for you. So on and so forth. Position yourself as that knowledge worker, not just, I'm selling you an insurance policy or whatnot. Because again, the value that people are seeing or going to see in the future is going to be around value as it relates to advice. Not around processing my insurance policy quickly. Because again, if that's your value prop, you're going to be taken over by automation,
Correct.
or something similar, right? And so that's where I think things are going. And I think that though the unique thing to that is, like I said, in order to be able to have the time and the right resources to provide the right advice to your clients, you have to be able to do the rest of the things efficiently.
That's right.
Like I said, the insurance transaction should be done efficiently
Mhm.
and whatnot. But I think that that's underlooked right now, or we're not discussing that enough right
Mhm.
now, because so much of everything is being talked about is, around efficiency, online. And
Correct.
I think that RPA applied in the right areas in your business can be a phenomenal way to elevate you into that advisor role.
Oh, absolutely. And you are from a family agency, and I can bet if you ask, and I forget, I don't know if your parents are still around, Rumba, but if you
Mhm.
ask them, they will tell you the foundation of the agency is built on customer service, getting to know their
Yep,
clients.
100%.
So in a way, this is like, the French saying, no, it says plus ça change, plus ça même. As things change, the things remain the same, say, so to speak, where old is new again, so to speak. And I think somewhere in the period in the last 20, 30 years, we've lost that art of customer service, and it became a transaction. And
Yes.
I'm glad to hear, you bring this back and saying, the transaction should be a small portion, because the volumes have gone up. So I can imagine why it happened. People
Yeah.
got so much more busier, so you had to, focus on the transaction and the complicated systems, and they lost what the whole purpose of that relationship was meant to be, or the company was meant to be, was building that relationship.
Bingo.
And now technology is giving you that opportunity. And to your point, VA is also an option, right? Definitely it's a part of
Yep.
the. It's always, everything. Everybody there's a role for everyone to play.
Yeah.
Where automation now can make you much more effective. And I don't use the word efficiency, actually. I use the word being more effective in your organization, because now you can get these things, the bot, Robin the bot, getting the work done for you. So you can go back to what the company was supposed to be on, or the customer service foundation was, which is, to your point, customer service. Bring that relationship back. Know your neighbors, so to speak, and say, okay, see them in the ballpark, right? Go out and meet them in where they are, talk to them, and get to understand the needs, and then build that long-term relationship from a generation. And to your point, actually, I remember reading somewhere that the new millennium, or the whatever they call these days, the new alpha generation coming into the workforce, I can see that in my son, who's 14. So, they actually get, bits and pieces of information on the YouTube or wherever they go
Hmm.
and get it. But in the end of the day, when it comes to actually make the right decision, they want to talk to someone to understand the full picture of what they're buying into. They may do their research, and they may know 50% of the information up front, but they want that person to walk them through and hold them and give them the confidence, saying, okay, here's the right product for for your needs. It's the right fit, right person.
Yeah.
It definitely is needed, actually. And I think the ones who do not do that and make it a transaction, I believe, will struggle and actually will go out of business, or lose out, so to speak, from the growth. Because to your point, there'll always be somebody who wants a transaction, right?
Yeah. And
Let them go to these transaction companies. But I
exactly.
truly believe, bulk of the people want customer service, because customer service is horrible at this point in this country.
I
Um,
totally
right,
agree. And I
across the
think
board.
if your value proposition is on, speed, or um, cheaper price, or,
Correct.
whatever it be, again, there's always a cheaper price and there's
Yes,
always faster
correct.
technology. And I mean, eventually it's going to be difficult to keep that client without some sort of a connection, without some sort of a
Right.
relationship. And again, there is a certain segment of the population that want that and value that.
Mhm.
And I don't want to discount that.
Correct.
But I think long term, you're going to see this more and more, where the actual insurance policy and the insurance transaction becomes much more commoditized.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
we, as the advisor, need to be doing just that, advising and helping our clients better understand what they're purchasing, what makes sense for their situation,
Mhm.
and how then where they can best go buy that particular product, policy, solution, whatever it be.
Because you're right, insurance products are changing as well, right? Like cyber liability was
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago was unheard of or very, seldom spoken about.
Yep.
Now it's a must because everybody, left, right, and center, everybody and the brother is getting hacked.
Yep.
If you're not talking to your customer, understanding, what's happening in the marketplace, you can't advise to the new one. You can't just say, here's a menu and here's a menu, take a look at the menu, what do you like, right?
Bingo.
I don't know what I like,
Yeah.
right? And me coming from the outside in the industry, right? And having gone through the experience, I was surprised. It's just the quality, the expectation is if I'm talking to a person that they will get to know and understand me rather than just read off a menu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where the distinction will come.
I agree. And that's where I think, this conversation becomes so important because it takes, some thought from agency leaders to say, where can we best drive value with our people? And then how can we do all of the other tasks that need to be done to drive that efficiently, productively, effectively? And, there's some of those things are going to be a good candidate for automation. Some might be a good candidate for outsourcing, but you need to go through that process of what experience are you looking to drive? Where does your value show for the client? And how do you work yourself back into, the right cost expense model to support that? I think automation can be a big part of that moving forward.
Exactly. And there's also the other thing I see in the industrial space is the consolidation happening, right?
Yeah.
So I see some people want to buy because independent agents, they see this private equity coming in and buying large agencies for nothing. And they realize I'm in the business. Why can't I grow? There's younger people who actually get into the business and they want to say, okay, I can get on another agency because the person retiring or whatever change in their reason to sell. Instead of buying another one or trying to get on, then trying to find a way to bring efficiencies, we can actually be more effective with growth because now you have one foundation that you build on, and you can leverage that to build more companies because a lot of the stuff that you do for half an hour here, half an hour there, 30 minutes a day, right? All that can actually when you multiply that by multiple agencies, that volume becomes very high.
Yeah.
And you can become more effective in your organization and be much more stronger as a footprint because now you have bulk of your people talking to clients and not processing work because you can always find someone cheaper to process.
Yep. I totally agree. Awesome. Well, so if somebody listening wants to learn more about you, Blue Ocean, or what you guys are doing, how can they get a hold of you guys?
Well, thank you for that. Absolutely. Our website is there, blueoceanstrategicpartners.com, SP. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And definitely, I'll be out in the different conversations with different people, call you, they can get a hold of me. And just our website and LinkedIn is probably a great place to connect. And my goal really is to get people to understand the art of the possible first. Yeah. Really educate them. I'm spending a lot of time educating people, saying, here's what's possible. As small companies, don't get left behind. Don't be that, don't become that sort of subsidiary of a larger corporations because we have the technology now for you to become as effective as a large company and manage your cost effectively to be the best of what you do.
Awesome. Totally agree. Well, I think this is a great conversation to be having. I think it's a great time to be having it. And so I appreciate your time sharing what you guys are doing with everybody. And I think this is a very awesome conversation for everybody to listen to. So
thank you.
Appreciate it. And look forward to hopefully seeing you soon here.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, taking the time to talk to me about this.
You got it. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. All right, thanks.